reality is so much of it really depends on the outcome of the election. Not knowing the status of where the Senate majority is, which party is going to be in control there, that leaves a lot up in the air as to what can get done. If the Democrats maintain the majority, I think you'd see more of a status quo of what we've done for the last several years, which we've done some really good things. Budget primarily, we've gotten that spending under control. But if you see Republicans take control, I think you'll see a whole lot of other issues that haven't been successful in being accomplished address this going forward. There's a number of things. You can be talking about social issues, budget issue principles, multiple things that we've been stonewalled on. Education. We've been trying to get home rule for a number of years for our schools. Passes out of the House only to go die in the Senate. We jokingly say the Senate is where you send good bills to die. If we flip the majority, I think that changes, and you're going to see some different bills come forward and some more excitement. But there's a number of other critical issues. One of the committees I sit on, I've taken a leadership role in, is the Public Safety Committee. And through the Public Safety Committee, in my tenure, I've floor managed and passed the first and only drone legislation in the state. Also through that committee, I handle a lot of the drug bills. So the privacy issues, but I also handle a lot of drug issues. Before, we were addressing a lot of synthetic marijuana. That was a big thing going on. We've, I think, got that successfully kind of narrowed down legislatively, but we'll be looking at the opioid issue. That was one I worked at last year. We got the Narcan bill, which is the overdose doesn't stop it, it just pretty much stops the drug from getting you high, is what it does. Getting that for first responders, that was a big thing, because you look at prescription drugs, and we're not just talking about the heroin user on the corner. When you talk about Narcan and some of those opioid antagonist drugs as well, you're got to remember there's some elderly folks in our communities that are on a lot of painkillers. Sometimes they forgot they took it, and they take it a second time. So having that Narcan available is very important. So seeing that get implemented, those would be a couple of the direct issues I'll be dealing with right now. I also anticipate the marijuana issue to be brought up again. I floor managed that first bill that we passed, and that does expire in July. I have a young constituent who is one of the children that suffers from these epileptic seizures. So those will be a couple things. We'll keep our eye on the tax situation, watching that. Of course, fighting the budget growth, continuing to do what we can there to keep the government where it should be in size and scope. We'll be watching the Medicaid transition and oversight here very closely, as we have been. Those are just a few of the things off the top of my head I know we'll be discussing. Well, first of all, the key is to recognize medicinal versus recreational. Absolutely no recreational. And we see that very clearly from Colorado and the issues that they've been running into. Medicinal is a different argument, a whole different situation. I do believe we need to expand what we have on the number of people that should be able to get the medicine from where we are today. What's the silver bullet? I don't have it. I don't think you can just go out and just say everything under the sun, because there's some PTSD issues and some folks that fall into there where it actually goes the opposite of what it does for somebody that has cancer. But we're going to have to rely on the experts. The University of Iowa, Dr. Yoshi, has been working on this for a number of years, working with the FDA and the federal government, because they're a big part of this. For whatever we do as a state can change dramatically by the Fed's reaction. So I think that's where we're at. I would like to see the University of Iowa be the ones in charge of a program. Whether we're talking about dispensing or growing or any of that, they need to be a big part of it. But this is politics. It is, many people have heard, it's like making sausage. You don't want to see the process getting done, but you want to see the end result. That's most exactly what this is. I'll be making trips to Illinois to study what they're doing and see how they're going. Minnesota's in infancy in their stages. We were trying to work a little bit with them last year to get some more of the medicine available to our folks in the northern part of the state. Weren't able to get that done. I'm not somebody who's going to look for perfection in everything that we do. I don't want to make perfect the enemy of good. So the first thing we got done with the CBD oils, that was a step in the right direction. Was it perfect? Nope. Was it good? Yes. And that's what I'm going to do again. So I can't predict what the exact outcome is today because I don't want to get stuck in a spot where I have to make perfect the enemy of good. I want to do good, get a good piece of legislation that helps more people, yet recognizes there are we do have to be very aware of the federal government, the FDA, the different agencies within the state, how all these things are going to play together going forward. Yes, we need to make it medical, and a big question we're going to have is the tax end. I have a lot of people say, let's raise the tax and this would be a huge tax generator. Yeah, but we don't tax medicine. This is a medicine. So we have to also be cognizant of that. And that's why I say I don't like to go too far into detail, because you don't know what you're going to have to give and take to get something done that helps more of the people you represent, because this is a game of compromise. It's not this to here and you to here. We got to come to a middle ground and find agreement that the governor will also sign. And that's the other big, caveat in this whole thing is, where's the governor going to land on this? We like to know if he's going to really veto, for sure veto, or if he's thinking about it or whatnot, because even with the first legislation we did with that CBD oil, he had to talk to governors from other states before he had a highest level of confidence in, yeah, this will be fine. He's listened to some of his other colleagues as well. So that's that wild card in that whole mix yet. I floor manage I actually floor manage the bill, which means that I'm the one that actually runs negotiations, pulls different things together, sometimes has to come down and get really pushed to get somebody to move in a direction within its State Department. I run the bill on the floor. All those, I'll be the one to draft the amendments.
You said that you had a big role in
Absolutely.
the current legislation. Do you think you'll still have that same similar role?
Yes, I've maintained that position. That one was before even I handled the Narcan and the other bills. Typically, if it's a drug bill, that's going to go through the Public Safety Committee, because we're a unique committee that not only deals with law enforcement, but we also deal with the medical folks and the healthcare. That we're that natural kind of fit. I'm also one of the House Assistant Leaders, so that keeps me kind of at the forefront of running some of these bills. Every legislator finds their niche, so to speak, of their issues. I also have a big ag focus, but one of the pleasant surprises I've had since I was elected, from what I thought I would do, we're handling all these drug and public safety bills and working with the law enforcement, the medical community, the treatment folks, the victims, because we're talking, there's families we got wives whose husbands are addicted and they're going through terrible things, and you're trying to help them work through these. But it's also been one of the most rewarding things. So yeah, I do foresee that I'll be a big part of the upcoming legislation. Well, first of all, a couple things that I will not change from the position I've held since before I was elected. Very simple. We're not going to spend more than we take in. There was a time we were doing that. We look back at some bad bonding we did to try to do that. It got us into a really bad financial spot. Well, by having a solid backbone as a house, we changed that philosophy. And I can't explain how important that is. That was a fundamental shift up there, and getting them to recognize we can't spend more than we take in, just like you and I can't in our own budgets all the time. We get that shift, and going forward, we've got to stick with that. I didn't vote for the gas tax. Not only was it a tax increase, but it was an unfair for southern Iowa compared to northern Iowa. It wasn't even balanced on that front. So I couldn't support it, and I don't anticipate supporting any tax increases going forward. I supported the biggest property tax cut in history. There's still going to be growth in the government. There's still going to be more money next year than there was last year. So there's going to be, it's just a matter of who either doesn't get more or who gets a lot more. And education has been a priority since we've taken control of the majority. That's why we've pumped $500 billion into that. We've never cut it. People assume that there's been cuts, but no, there's not been cuts. It's just they didn't get as much as they wanted to have, because we were trying to balance that out. And I think one of the biggest areas we've got to be very cautious of not taking more money out of is the justice system's judiciary end of our budget. Our prisons we need money in our prisons. We need money on the roads through the troopers. And then we also need some funding in a number of other areas around, including water quality. We tried to lock some different things down previously through using current tax streams to get money locked into there for water quality, because that's definitely a priority as well. So it's a messy deal doing these budgets. I would like to see us change to go to zero-based budgeting, and also do something to get the legislature to pass our budgets faster. than we do today, and that means also having teeth in the law, because we can't wait until the last 3 weeks every session to try to figure out our budget, which seems to happen. Well, I think there's a lot of waste within Department of Natural Resources that we could find specifically. I think that there's some other programs we can be moving around that fit better locally and not at the state level, and if we do that, I think they will find more efficiencies than we could find. I think there's some room at workforce development for either reductions or moving of people around in there, because I see a lot of waste there. I hear more and more from the business community that they feel like that is just a one-sided deal up there. So I think there's some things we can do in there, and continuing to find efficiencies. The DOT found over $50 million in efficiencies when pushed. I think we can do that in other departments. I've been honored to represent the good people of Keokuk and Washington County. I live on that county line my whole life. I just love my town. I love my community. My kids go to our schools. We go to church there. This is our home. We want to see people flourish. We want our friends and families to come back to our communities. That's why I do this job, because I want our people to have a great life, the great life that I grew up with. I want my kids to have that too. So I just hope to have their continued support and vote.